Hi everyone, welcome to Talking Mental Health with me, Joe. This is episode number 11, I believe, and today I'm fortunate enough to be joined by Dan Rowe. How are you, Dan?
Very well, thanks for the invite, Joe.
Yeah, it's nice to have you on, mate. I really appreciate you taking the time on, what day are we on? Tuesday night? And I know
Yeah,
there's some football on and stuff, so I appreciate you taking the time to sit and have a chat with us. Can you just explain a little bit, Dan, about what you do currently, and then we'll go back a little bit and figure out how you got there?
yeah, of course. So, from a working point of view, I head up a division called Mentor 2. We're part of the Talk Out group. So the Talk Out group are 18 months old, and really are looking at how we can support businesses through the change of culture to encourage an open, positive mental health culture. So where people that, even if they are going through struggles, like we know that a lot of people do at different times within their lives, they've still got the ability to thrive within the workplace, which is something that I think we all want to do. We all want to do, even when we're going through some kind of tough times. So we have different aspects of the business in terms of consultancy, training. We have a wellbeing app, and we also have virtual reality as well, which is pretty exciting. So Mentor 2, we focus mainly on male-dominated industries, and really look at how we can, I suppose, with the added stigma. So looking at industries such as construction, logistics, IT, these kind of industries that are heavily male-orientated, and they have the tendency of thinking that men don't talk and all this kind of nonsense, really. But it's working with these businesses to understand how the leaders within that business affect at every level going down, and how we can break that stigma apart to make sure that it doesn't matter what industry you are, what business you are, you're able, if you're in a place where you need to talk, there is an opportunity to do that.
And is that a difficult thing to do, to open up that conversation in those places, in your experience?
Actually, no, not really. You think it wasn't. I've worked with a number of construction businesses probably over the last 18 months on a few different things, and I always find that when I deliver talks within these organizations, that the people generally want to come and tell their story after. They want to come and share that with you, because I speak really openly about my own challenges. So actually getting through the door and getting the understanding that, do you know what, it's okay to do that, and feeling that there's no judgment for people to do that, then actually guys do open up. We know that guys talk. It's just providing the right environment and the right space to kind of do that, and work hard to get rid of whatever stigma is there, that holds people back.
That's amazing. I think that's a really important thing that you guys are doing. So congratulations for, everything that you guys do. Can we just touch upon you mentioned there your experiences of mental health. Can you just kind of explain what you've struggled with in the past and how you have come to be where you are at this current present time?
Yeah, absolutely. So my challenges with regards to poor mental health started with the birth of my son. So he's 4.5. He's just started school. He's a really happy, healthy young lad, and is currently asleep upstairs, as well as we record this. And but when he was born, he was poorly, and within an hour of him being born, he was taken off us. So he was rushed to intensive care, or NICU. But going through that kind of process of his mum being pregnant and doing the NCT classes and these kind of different bits and pieces, it never ever occurred to me, and I don't know whether I was just being naive around it, but it was never never occurred to me, and it was never really talked about, that A, there was ever the opportunity that something like this could happen, but B, as a dad, how you'd feel about it. So my job going into this, I was really clear that my job as being a dad was to support mum. That was it. The baby was almost like, the baby's not your responsibility. Almost, it was just all about how you're going to support mum. And so when he went into intensive care, I remember asking the midwife and the doctor, like, "Where's my son?" And they said, "Oh, he's gone to NICU." And I was like, "Okay, but where is he?" And they're like, "He's gone to NICU." And I was like, I get that. I understand that he's going to NICU, but my mind was going, I physically, like, if I leave this room, where is he? Like, direction do I go? What floor is he on? Like, I don't know in the hospital where NICU is, so I don't know where my son is. And that was kind of the biggest thing that struck home with me initially, was my concentration was not on the emotional side of the fact that my son was in intensive care. It was a practical thing, like that kind of protector. I couldn't protect my son because I didn't know where he was. And then as kind of time went by, and he was born in December, so he was ill kind of over Christmas really. And while he was in intensive care, which he spent about a week in, I found that I quickly went into the role of I needed to look after everybody else. And every time, and I remember, and I said this on a live broadcast that I did on Friday, but I remember having a conversation with my mum. I was sat in a stairwell of Oldham Hospital, of all places, all the glamour, and talking about my son, about the fact that I couldn't protect him, and I felt like I'd failed him, and I got a bit upset. And my mum was great, saying, look, it's okay to kind of feel like that. But I got off the phone, and straight away I felt guilty. And I felt guilty because I thought, if I feel like that, imagine what his mum's going through. Mm. And that kind of hit home for me, that I didn't have any rights to feel like that, because no matter how I felt, his mum would obviously feel a million times worse because she's his mum. So kind of going forward, he spent sort of 10, 11 days in hospital in total. And then for the first 6 months, we kept revisiting hospital to have quite a few, all of his kind of vital organs being checked, the functionality. And like I said, everything's okay. He's absolutely fine. But for 6 months, he was in and out of hospital. And every time he got the all clear or something, I could see everybody in the room just like that kind of visual release of relief. And I didn't feel any of that. And it wasn't because I didn't want my son to be better, because of course I did, and I was happy that he was. But I'd bottled up all this emotion. That the only emotion that I could feel and that I could seem to access was guilt. So I'd look around the room, I'd pretend like I'd put the smile on my face because I was kind of happy, but didn't feel the happiness there, and then felt guilty that I wasn't feeling like everybody else was kind of feeling. And I was really struggling at this point as well to actually connect with my son. Every time I looked at him, I felt like I'd failed him. I felt like the reason why he'd had a tough start to life was my fault. And it was all to do with, it was something to do with me. It was something that I'd obviously done. And it was kind of all my fault. So the guilt just built and built and built. And as you know, Joe, and I think a lot of people now, is when you build up that so much emotion, at some point it's got to come out. You can't store it for forever. And I believe there's two ways to release emotion. There's a positive way in terms of talking. So talking about how you're feeling, talk about what's going on. And then sadly, the other way is the way I chose. And it led me to attempt suicide. And I made 3 attempts over the space of 18 months to kind of end my life, because I just felt no hope. I felt like everybody was better off without me. I felt like my son would be better off. I thought that his mum would obviously kind of move on, be happy, and maybe she'd meet someone that could be a proper dad to him, because I just didn't feel like that. I just didn't feel like a dad. I didn't feel like a very good one at all.
Yeah, I mean, I can't relate to that at all, but I can understand how tough it must have been from an imaginative point of view. You know, and I think the way that you nailed it, you hit the nail on the head there when you said it can either come out one of 2 ways. It can come out really positively, or it can come out the complete opposite way. What was missing for you after your son was born and he was taken to NICU? Was there anything in place to kind of explain to you what the next steps for him were, or what the next steps for you were as a family in terms of his development when he came out of NICU?
No, so it was an interesting. Well, it wasn't interesting. It was kind of an ever changing thing. I remember the first night he was in NICU. I spent with him in sat next to him. He was in an incubator, and the nurse that was there, she was amazing. She put my mind at ease. Everything was going to be okay. It was the build up to Christmas, so everyone was kind of a little bit in a bit of a festive spirit, if you like. And I never remember being sat there and just kind of staring at him and just kind of wanting to be there, make sure he knew that I was there for him, and I was gonna look after him, and all that kind of stuff. And then I remember at the end of her shift, she kind of said, "Oh, look, I'm not back on till Christmas Eve, I think it was. So, well, I'll not see you again. So good luck with everything." And I said, "Oh, that's amazing. That's kind of all good." And then the next day, they took the lid off the incubator. And when they took the lid off, both his lungs collapsed. And I wasn't there at the time. I'd gone home to get some stuff and to get some rest as well, to be honest with you, because we told, "Oh, he's doing really well, he's starting to improve." And then that happened. I'd been sat on the sofa and for about, I don't know, 5 minutes, and his mum called me to say, "You need to come back to hospital right away," kind of thing. And I don't know whether I got a sense that it was me abandoning him that caused that. It's not logical. It's not logical in any shape or form. It had nothing to do with that. But again, I had that added kind of pressure. So going forward, we didn't know what was going on. He has what's called a coloboma, which meant that his eye didn't form when he was at the same. One of his eyes didn't form fully, which is why he had to get all the organs kind of checked. And we don't know. He's got a bit of sight in it, but we're not sure. But normally it's a sign that there's other issues, which is where the 6 months came in terms of going in and checking that out. And it was just a constant roller coaster. It was a constant. It could be this, it could be that, it could be this, it could be that, and there was just no kind of settled or stability within that. So nobody could really say anything. But I guess from my point of view, and anyone that was talking when we were at appointments, I was never addressed. It was always addressed to his mum.
Right.
That's where the conversation was always directed to. I was almost seen there as just a chaperone, as just somebody to drive his mum. So I never felt included in any of it, which again just added to the pressure and added to kind of the stuff that was going on in my head that I didn't obviously realise that was necessarily going on at that time.
Did you feel like you could go and talk to somebody at that, when you were going through all of these different situations? Did you ever feel confident enough to go and have a conversation with a friend or a family member, or find someone that you could actually open up to? Or was your way of internalizing it in your mind the best way to deal with it?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I always describe it as like I didn't know what was going on, so I didn't understand that I needed to talk to somebody, and that was the kind of the big thing was, I didn't realize that I was at the stage that I was until so I didn't realize I was suicidal until I made a suicide attempt. I didn't realize I was suffering with poor mental health until it got to that stage where I just felt like there's just no way out. So in my head, I had no way of understanding or how to process the thoughts and the feelings and the emotions that were going on. My Charlie's mum recognised it, that I was struggling, and would say, "Oh, are you okay?" But it was kind of like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like going, "Yeah, I'm fine." And I'm okay. I missed loads of all the kind of the clues that babies give out with what they want and what they need. So I missed kind of all them when I spent time with Charlie, and I just really struggled with a bond with him. I've got the best bond ever. Like me and his mum aren't together anymore, and so I see loads of him. We've got a great bond. We've just had this evening, because he's done well in school. We've just had a party, and it's just so much fun to see him develop in that aspect. But for so long, I didn't see myself as kind of a worthy dad. So it's always been a challenge, but as time goes by, it kind of improves massively. But I guess to answer your question is, A, I didn't know what was going on, and B, I didn't feel comfortable in talking about it because I didn't understand what was going on in my head.
Right. And was that you? So prior to Charlie's birth, were you very similar in the sense that you would internalize emotions instead of having conversations with other people, or was there no sign of that whatsoever until he was born?
Yeah, I've always been pretty kind of laid back sort of guy, but fairly relaxed, not too much kind of rattles me or kind of concerns from that aspect. So I've never been one that's necessarily been that open in terms of emotions and feelings and all that kind of stuff. But I've always put it down to purely on the basis that I didn't really feel that much in terms of any kind of issues. I just let things, I very much try to live by the mantra of just control what you can control. And I've always been kind of pretty good with that. So I've let everything else just kind of fly over my head and being kind of a bit blasé and a bit kind of chilled out about it. So it's not that I've necessarily was a closed book around it, but I suppose I never just got into the situation where I needed to really kind of talk to somebody about what was going on. But I suppose with my marriage, I was open with kind of things. If I'd had a bad day, I'd say I've had a bad day and things like that. But so it's not that I wouldn't have been closed off. It was just with my personality, it would just be completely laid back and chilled out, and don't let think when something bad happens, you just kind of let it go over your head and kind of move on, really.
And I suppose nothing can prepare you for what you went through at the time anyway.
No, I don't think so. I'm really lucky in terms of sort of I've not lost kind of close ones, so I've not really suffered particular grief of any kind of close family. So I've not been in I suppose in a situation where extreme emotions been introduced from that point of view. And I would imagine that if that had happened, then maybe I would have seen kind of signs leading up to his birth. But from that point of view, no, there was nothing outward.
And then afterwards, you said you made the attempts on your life. What changed after you'd made those attempts on your life, and where did you go to seek help to get you to the space that you're in now?
Yeah, so the last attempt I made was the 6th of Jan 2018. So on the 8th of Jan, so 2 days after, I'm a big rugby league fan, and I've been following a guy called Luke Ambler for a while, and he set up Andy's Man Club. And I've been talking about Andy's Man Club with people actually. I've tried to help someone that I worked with. I offered to take him to Andy's Man Club literally 2 or 3 months prior to my last attempt, and my now ex-wife, she kind of just said, "Listen, we need you around. You need to go and get help. Like go and do it. There's literally nothing to lose." So I went to Andy's Man Club on the Monday night in Oldham and just found an environment within 20 minutes of being there, found somebody that I could relate to, that was going through to an extent what I'd been going through, especially with the relationship with their child. Had a smile on his face and straight away just kind of provided me with just a little bit of hope. And it's not a miracle. It took probably 6 months of going to Andy's Man Club every week. And I remember when I first started talking, I was very quiet. And when I did start talking, I struggled to stop talking. And I don't think any of it made sense. I feel sorry for the guys still to this day that had to listen to the gibberish that came out of my mouth. But it was the first step of 18 months of holding on to something, just over 2 years really, of holding on to emotion coming out in a positive way. And it didn't have to be good sentences. It just had to be words to come out. And then what I found was over time of actually talking about what was going on and what I was feeling and the consequences to feeling like that, and then consequences of talking about these kind of things and thinking about it as the weeks go on, and the way that the meetings were kind of structured, I found that I was then able to start to really kind of disentangle all my thoughts, because I was having 1,000 thoughts a second. I couldn't get hold of any of them, so I couldn't process it, and actually just to start to offload it and get it out of my head into space or into wherever really started to kind of help me to understand what had gone on and what was going on, and then start to, like your question before, in terms of being able to talk to other people. Actually now I'm in a position where I can talk to half a dozen people that around me that I feel confident in terms of I can just have a chat with them and never let things get to the crisis point before having a conversation. I'm well aware of my triggers now, and it was just kind of a revolutionary kind of journey that you make yourself, I think, which is really important. I'm always a big advocate for kind of taking self-responsibility, which is the hardest thing to do when you're in a bad place. But if you join a group like Andy's Man Club, or there's plenty of kind of out there, and you find that the best ones are the ones where you create your own solutions. You might get a little bit of help, you might pick up some experience that other people have been through, but it's finding what works for you, which is something that's I concentrate a lot on still to this day, really.
It's amazing. Do you remember what you felt like before you actually went in the door the first time?
Yeah, I remember it really well. I tell this story quite a lot as well. So I was sat in the car at Oldham Leisure Centre. I got there really early, so the session started at 7. I got there at 6, and I kind of, in my head, I was never going to walk through the door ever. It just wasn't going to happen. I was going to sit there until like 7:30. I was going to drive home and say, "Listen, it's not for me. I've tried it," and kind of go back to feeling sorry for myself, which is what I was doing. And about 6:30, there was a knock on the window, and I put the window down. Strange guy, never met before, and he said, "Are you here for Andy's Man Club?" And I kind of like looked around, and I was at Oldham Leisure Centre, and like, could I think of another reason why I'd be sat there in the car park? I mean, they've got everything, all the facilities there. I could not think of another reason. So I think I nodded. I don't think anything audible came out of my mouth. And he said, "Right, come on, get out of your car, I'll take you in." And that walking in, and I remember kind of head down, don't make eye contact with anybody, feeling ashamed, feeling all the pressure of the world kind of on my shoulders, and I'll never forget it. And I'll just never forget it. Getting walked into the door, people coming up to you saying, "Hi mate, you okay? Welcome. You're really welcome in the room," and someone making me a brew, someone giving me a biscuit, kind of thing, and sitting in a kind of in a circle with a ball going round, dreading the ball kind of landing to me, thinking I'm never going to speak, and then just having and feeling straight away that nobody was being judged for what they had to say. Nobody was being looked down if someone had a comment about something that was going on about their life or some of their struggles. Feeling that it's just, do you know what, it's not a competition. There's no kind of bad game of top trumps going on here. It's just guys that want to be there for each other. And it's a kind of a weird scenario in which everybody's there to help themselves. But by helping themselves, they're helping everybody else. And it's kind of an odd conundrum. There's somebody facilitating the group, but there's nobody leading the group in terms of saying, right, you should do this, you should do that. It's the guys just sharing experience that kind of helps that. So I think from my point of view, from not wanting to walk through the door, I kind of walked away thinking, at the end of the night, thinking like what I've just experienced is amazing. It's truly amazing. And don't get me wrong, like I still felt terrible when I left. Like it wasn't, like I said, it's not a miracle story. You don't walk out dancing, skipping with a big smile on your face. Like I walked out feeling a little bit better than when I walked in. And it was because I felt a little bit better that I kind of made a commitment, right, I'm going to go back next week. And I continue to do that. If I worked on the basis in the early days that if I feel a little bit better when I leave, then when I arrive, I'll go back the following week. And I think that was kind of really important for me to kind of remember and turn that into that kind of habit to understand, because it's so easy just to not bother the next week. It's so hard. The first week is tough. The second week's tougher because you know what to expect going into it. So actually the second time, a lot of the time, can be really, really tough, can be a bit harder.
You kept going back. That's the main thing.
Yeah, it's really important, and I think you kind of, I mean, you develop so many friendships out there. Like some of my closest friends now are people that I've met with Andy's Man Club. I've got I do a podcast and radio show with my co-presenter is I met him through Andy's Man Club. Our audio producer I met through Andy's Man Club. Sort of work is, I wouldn't have got the job that I'm in now if it wasn't for Andy's Man Club and for talking about kind of mental health. So I think everything has a reason. It's taken 38 years to find something that I'm truly kind of passionate about in terms of helping other people as well, and helping myself to be able to help other people. And it's kind of a real kind of privilege and an honor to kind of be involved with groups like that and be involved with Men Talk Too and really look at how we can make a real difference, just like you're doing as well with this with this kind of chat as well, Joe.
Just to go back one step, sorry, I was going to ask you this before. You know, you said you were sat in the car outside the leisure centre and you just had the knock on the window. What, or not what, but who would you be now if that guy hadn't knocked on the window and dragged you out of the car?
Oh, that's a tough question. It's a tough question. There was nothing in my life that would suggest that I'd do anything else other than attempt suicide again, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
If I didn't get, and by this point as well, I mean, to put it into kind of perspective, like I'd done a course of counselling at this stage already as well. And while the counselling was good and yeah, it kind of did its job at the time. It was limited in terms of what it could do, but I can't see any other way, and it's not something that I kind of would enjoy kind of thinking about. But I can't see any other way that it wouldn't have involved at least another attempt at suicide. So, I mean, I suppose in a way, who's to say? Like I mentioned, my son started school 2 weeks ago. On that first day taking him into school, I can guarantee you that one of the biggest thoughts that were going through my head was, you could have missed this.
Mm.
And that hit home really, really hard. Going home, I was in tears when I came home. I held it together while he went in, and while you see a lot of parents crying at the gates when the kids go to school, mine was for very, very different reasons. Mine was very much because I could have missed that, and that kind of was really hard for me to take.
Mm. And do those? I mean, I don't have children myself yet, but do those little moments now seem so much bigger because of that?
Yeah, I think it's, as with anything with life, Joe, is you kind of get to the stage where you become complacent about things again. So you can become complacent. And I suppose that the one big thing is with obviously the situation, the COVID situation that we all find ourselves in and have done for months is, I think that the biggest thing that I've learned from the last 6 months is to really appreciate the simple things. I have a really, really simple life now. I don't worry about too much other stuff that's kind of going on and about. I'll make sure that I'm doing the right thing by me and the right thing by my son and my family, which is really, really important to me. But I mentioned before we started recording, my son's done well in school, and I'm going away next week, so I'm not going to see him for 10 days. So we had a little party here in the house where we got little party food, and we had some music going, we've had balloons and all this kind of stuff. And I think it's situations like that you stop and take a second and think, see the smile on his face, and you see I feel the connection that we've got, which has increased during this last 6 months as well. That I'm so grateful that I am. But it's all too easy to go through life and not realise the simple things are the most important.
I think that's very true, and I completely agree. You know, that those little things that I guess you kind of take for granted. You know, in a situation like we're in right now, everything seems so less important than it did 6 to 8 months ago. You know, there was things I know I was thinking about and worrying about, and now I don't even think about them because it's like they really weren't that important. I just built things up in my mind to make them way more important than they actually were. And I was going to ask you actually about lockdown. Like, I mean, you kind of answered the question anyway, but has it changed your life drastically, or has it changed work? I guess personal and work life as well, because I assume that now people, or when they were in lockdown, you know, sort of April, May time, did that bring extra work your way in terms of, you know, people wanting to talk, or did it kind of just carry on as normal?
I think kind of April, May, the early times, I think everyone went into a bit of a siege mentality, didn't they? So I think from a work point of view, bearing in mind that pre-lockdown, all of our training was delivered face-to-face within that kind of classroom environment. So that stopped overnight, as you can well imagine. Everyone parted the office to kind of go back home. So actually, the first kind of couple of months, one of the first things that we did was look at how we could support our existing clients. So we did a lot of work with those guys, kind of free of charge. which we were really lucky to be able to offer that, to offer support. And then we looked at all of our training, how can we convert classroom training, which is always our preference, will always be our preference. We like that human connection, which is so important, but we're still able to offer really high quality training, but we'd have to do that virtually. So we looked at things like Zoom and Teams, just like everyone else did in the world, it appears. And so we had to be able to kind of adapt to that, so that when businesses would start to look ahead rather than look at the sort of right in front of their nose, if you like, with regards to it, we started. So from a business point of view, we've started to really pick up again, and it's been really busy. And up until obviously this week, we had classroom training booked in again, and I imagine that's going to change, and everything will go back to being kind of virtual. So it's great to be able to support, and it's great that so many businesses is part of the conversation now. It's so important. It's so important for business to acknowledge that no matter what the impact, and it's obviously a significant and devastating impact that coronavirus has had, like the mental health impact that this is going to have for the next 12, 24 months is going to be just enormous. It's going to be, and this is where these are the key points where they really need to look at how they can support their employees, because there's some really simple things that can be done that don't cost any money, or certainly don't cost very much money, in which they can start to make sure that they're having the conversations which are so important. And then from a personal point of view, I suppose the same as I would imagine for you as well, Joe, like a lot of my hobbies, I like going to the pub with my mates, I like watching football, I'm a season ticket holder at a Super League, rugby league team, which with my son. So everything that I generally enjoy doing overnight stopped. And I found it difficult. I found like I'd actually lost part of my identity with how I was, and all of the areas, the majority of the areas in which I got pleasure, I guess, were stopped overnight. So I had to work really, really hard. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it's never easy, and I've had a fair few wobbles during this time, and I've had some really kind of down times as well. But I've had to find new ways in which I can thrive again, and new hobbies. And I remember sitting down and just kind of writing on an A4 piece of paper, and at the top saying, well, what do you want life to be? And you kind of get away and you think about, well, what's important? Is it important that I've got the latest Apple iPhone or the latest Apple Watch? Or is it important that I've got a wardrobe full of designer clothes? Or is it important that my son's got Nike trainers, or all these kind of things that you think about? Is it important that I go to the nicest restaurant in Manchester, or I go on 3 holidays a year, or whatever that kind of thing is? And actually, when you strip everything back and think about what's important to me, and like, I love rugby league. I'm a huge rugby league fan, but I got the season tickets because, do you know what, it was something that me and my son did? And we went with one of his friends and their dad, and the 4 of us went to, and it's about connection, isn't it? It's about, when you look at what's important in life. Well, to me, like, I spent 25p on a bag of balloons and about £2 on party rings and some kind of sweets. Like, tonight, I've had the best time with my son that I can remember for kind of a long time, and it's cost me £3 or £4. It's like, you don't have to go to these big brash places. You don't have to always have to do things. There's nothing my son loves more when he's with me than going to the park and playing football. Well, that doesn't cost anything, does it? So it kind of look at all of that. My girlfriend works for the NHS. She's a radiographer. She works, as with everyone else, she's frontline and under pressure and all this kind of stuff. So to me, it's like, you look at that and it's like, do you know what, as I'm spending time with her, like, again, we don't have to go out to the best restaurants all the time. We don't have to go to the pub all the time. It's about spending quality time. I'm really lucky where I live in terms of in the Pennines, that I can, like, within 10 minutes I'm up in the hills. I'm away from civilization, if you like, and it's appreciating what's good and what's around and what's kind of natural support. Now I'm much more inclined to support local businesses than I probably ever have been. I try and avoid chains, and I try and support that if I do go to a pub, I'll go to a local pub, I'll not go to a brewery pub, just to really kind of support those kind of like local things. So I suppose it sounds like a bit of a smart answer really, I guess, but actually sitting back and filling out this, just thinking about this on like I said, an A4 piece of paper about what do I want life to be, and I'm so much happier that I'm not chasing anything. I'm content in where I am. I'm happy with what's going on, and life will throw more ups and downs, of course it will. But as long as I keep to what I believe in and keep to what's important to me, and the biggest thing for me is it's just that human connection with those that are close to me.
Yeah. So I guess we're kind of close to wrapping up. I just wanted to ask, you said before, you use kind of buzzwords, I guess, you said poor mental health and then thriving. How do you, or what things do you do to make sure that you stay closer to thriving than going towards the poor mental health end? What are your what's your escapism? What's your way to kind of switch off and just be free? I know you said you play football with your little lad and you go out into the hills and walk around. Is that kind of your, get out in nature and just switch off from technology?
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because you'll know yourself, I think with a lot of our jobs that we do, technology plays such a huge part. So I pick and choose what tech that I tend to get involved in. And I also try, and sometimes fail miserably, but I try to limit the time that I get involved with that. And part of, I suppose, there's a few things that I do from a positive to make sure that I'm in the thriving mold, if you like. And one of them is I use an app called 3 Good Things. So at the end of every day, I write out 3 things that went well that day. And it's kind of a natural thing now. I've done this for 2.5 years. I find the really benefits me because I find going through the day looking for things that are positive, which is great. I practice regularly freezing cold showers in the morning, which and do kind of some breathing techniques. So do some Wim Hof breathing while in a freezing cold shower. It clears my mind. It freshens me up. I get so much energy from it, and that energy, even by being in the shower for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever that kind of may be, I find that by the end of the day, I've still got energy around me, and I still feel good. So I try to keep my coping strategies to really small things. So to keep positive, because I know that I like running, but I know if I set myself a target to go for a run every day, I'll not go for a run every day because I'll find a million excuses.
Yeah.
And I know that I'll enjoy it when I'm out there, but getting the trainers on doesn't always work. But I know that it's really easy to have a 3-minute shower in the morning, freezing cold, and that sets me up for the whole day. I know that writing 3 things on an app when it sends me an update at 9:00 at night to tell me to fill it out, I'll do it because it's easy to do and it has a long-lasting benefit. So for me, it's finding stuff that's really small that I'll do repeatedly, and I'll create that habit, and I'll keep going that works for me, and then I add other things onto that. So I go for walking, but you're not going to go for a 5-minute walk, are you? Do you know what I mean? It might be especially in the hills around here, it's like a 2-3 hour job. It's a big job to go and do that. I can't do that all the time because I don't have the time to obviously do it. So it's just finding these little things that you can do to prioritize your self-care, in my opinion, that they're easily do. If you set yourself massive targets, you're setting yourself up for a fall. I love a fad, absolutely love a fad, and change my thing, and I'm planning one for when I come back, and I've just been kind of putting that together, and it's a real challenge, but I know that it's not sustainable. I know that after the 4 weeks that I do it, I'll probably lose it, but it's a real challenge for that 4 weeks, and I'll enjoy it. But I know that I'll probably lose the habit because it's too much for me to sustain.
Yeah.
Which is why, like, the really easy, simple things work for me.
That's fun. Yeah, I think that's important. You've got to find the things that work for you, because not everything works for everybody. So finding, even if it's just tiny little things to do daily or once every week or something like that, and if it works for you and it makes you feel
Yeah.
good and you enjoy it, then I'm all for it. So just to finish off, Dan, just give us your website, give us your name of your podcast, just so if anyone who wants to follow you or listen to it can find you.
Perfect. Yeah. So Mental 2. So the website is if you just type in Talk Out, I think it's talkout.org.uk. If I've got that wrong, I'm going to be really embarrassed. I'm probably going to get a call from my chief as well, asking why I don't know that. But so the Talk Out website is there. Obviously, Andy's Man Club is andysmanclub.co.uk. So check those guys out. And then on social media, obviously you can find me on LinkedIn and on Twitter at Dan Rowe 28 and Instagram. I should really know this. I think it's at Dan Rowe _MH. I think it is as well. And the podcast is called the 84 Podcast. So we've just finished series 1 about a month ago. Series 2 is going to start pretty soon. And we also do a monthly radio show on Reform Radio as well.
Brilliant. Well, Dan, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time. Go in there.
Mate, it's been a pleasure.
Enjoy the rest of your evening and enjoy your holiday as well. I hope you have a nice break.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But cheers for this and keep up the great work that you're doing, Joe, as well.
Thanks, mate. You too. Take care.
No worries. Cheers.
Bye.